Welcome to Stripes and Stories, a show about life as a Pryor Tiger. I'm your host, Tina James. Hello, everyone. We're here today talking with Amy Floch. She's our Director of Child Nutrition here at Pryor Public Schools, and she's going to talk to us about everything school lunches.
Yes, thank you for having me, Tina.
You're so welcome. So, Amy, what got you interested in nutrition?
I have always been a very health conscious person. In my senior year of high school, my stepfather got sick, and I really delved into how food plays a vital role in our health and exercise and all of those things, and then decided to get my degree in dietetics. And so it just kind of all fell into place.
Dietetics.
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics from Northeastern State University.
And that led to you accepting the position here as our child nutrition director.
Yes. So straight out of college, I started working for Head Start of Greater Dallas and had a role as a nutrition specialist for all of their Head Starts in Dallas. I've also been with Broken Arrow Public Schools as their nutrition education coordinator, and then I ended up here.
Well, we are so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So I understand today that we are going to be visiting about meal patterns, changes to guidelines, and then maybe some exciting news about possibilities coming up here.
Yes. So I wanted to start with meal patterns because I think in order to understand the changes, we need to go back to the basics of how we got there. So meal patterns. And when we say meal patterns in child nutrition, we're basically just talking about the guidelines that we're using to create reimbursable meals for breakfast, for lunch, and for our after-school snack program.
So, Amy, can you describe what a pattern would look like?
Yes. So when we're talking about meal patterns, we're looking at the fat content of a meal. We're looking at the calories, the sodium, the added sugars, all of those things that are part of the guidelines that we get. At breakfast, we call those items because not every single component is required at breakfast.
Okay.
But when we are planning a menu for breakfast, we have to menu 4 items, and the student has to take a minimum of 3, one of which has to be the fruit or the vegetable offering. At lunch, we have 5 components that are required to be part of the meal. And those are our milk, our fluid milk, our meat alternate, grains, fruits, and vegetables.
Okay.
So at lunch, 3 of those 5 have to be taken by the student, one of which has to be the fruit or a vegetable that is offered. And I think sometimes where the hang-up becomes a little bit muddy for people is that those are the minimum that a student has to take for it to be reimbursable. But they can take all 5. And sometimes you'll see when you go out to the schools, the person on the serving line will say, don't forget your fruit or vegetable. And that's why it's so that we can ensure that each meal that each student is getting through the line is a reimbursable meal.
Amy, what exactly is a reimbursable meal? I mean, what's the process that you go through?
Right. So in child nutrition, when we're talking about a reimbursable meal, at the end of each month, part of my job in the district is to compile that total number of meals that we served for the students that met that criteria, and to send that off to the State Department to recoup some of the funds that we used to make those meals. So reimbursable is just meaning that we're getting money back for those meals.
Okay. And do you have a ballpark figure about how many meals that we're serving here at Pryor?
So for our lunch meals, that is anywhere from 25,000 to 30,000 meals in a month.
Wow.
And breakfast is it's significantly smaller, but I would say about 15 to 17,000 breakfast meals per month. And
that's amazing.
That fluctuates depending on the month, of course, and how often we're out for whatever reason, but that's a good ballpark figure.
When the students are coming through the lunch line, we're serving meals.
Yes.
Or offering meals.
Yes. So there are two different templates that can fall under. You can be a district that is offer versus serve, or you can be a district that is serve only. Now, this is mandatory for secondary students for them to have the choice and be offer versus serve. But as a district, we've decided to be offer versus serve at every site. And the reason is, with serve only, the student has to take every single item that is on the menu listed as part of that meal. And a lot of times what you find when you're serve only is the food waste is extremely high. Offer versus serve gives students some ownership and some decision-making abilities over what do I want to have for lunch today. And if I don't like this particular item, I don't have to take it. And so that is why, as a district, we've decided for all of our sites to be offer versus serve.
Are there any items on the menu each day for students that they do have to take?
The fruit or the vegetable.
The fruit or the vegetable.
That is what, no matter how many they decide to take or whatever, they've decided a fruit or a vegetable is mandatory on the tray.
What's the most popular fruit here at Pryor?
Oh man, our students really do like their fruit, but I will say I see strawberries going over very well. Bananas are a good one. Anytime we get peaches in, they also like some peaches. So
Oh, it would be so nice if we could get those porter peaches.
I know.
What other guidelines or what changes do you see in the future?
So two that stick out to me the most are they have really been looking at the sodium content or the salt in our meals, and also something this year that they've asked for some feedback on is the added sugar component. And so going forward, those will change slightly. For the 26-27 school year, the sodium requirements are going to stay the same.
Okay.
But coming into the school year 27-28, we're going to have an approximate 15% reduction in the sodium allowed in our lunch meals.
Okay.
And a 10% reduction in the sodium allowed in our breakfast meals. So there could be some changes that really apply to the students' taste buds.
Sugar. That's an interesting topic. What are the new guidelines?
So currently, we don't have anything in our guidelines about added sugars.
Oh.
As long as the food meets those calorie requirements, we're allowed to serve it. But the final rule from the USDA going forward is going to really affect things like our breakfast cereals, because they will not be allowed to have more than 6 grams of added sugar per dry ounce.
Okay.
Yes. Yogurt can have no more than 12 grams of added sugar per 6 ounces. And this one will really hit home. It's our flavored milk may have no more than 10 grams of added sugar per 8 fluid ounces.
How much sugar does it have currently?
So right now in our fat-free chocolate milk, I believe we're sitting right at 10 grams.
Okay. Now, could you tell me again just how long it is till that takes effect, the
This
reduce?
will be going into next year's requirements for the added sugar.
Okay, so that's
Yes.
coming on
So
us
it
pretty
is
quickly.
coming up. Also attached to that final rule on added sugars is that by school year 27-28, the dietary specifications are going to start limiting the added sugar to less than 10% of total calories across the week for both breakfast and lunch. So other things that maybe would have fit in for the calorie requirements before are now going to be subject to that 10% of total calorie reduction. And so other things may be hit by that as well.
So this is going to be an adjustment for our Tigers, but one that I'm sure that you are already preparing to make.
Absolutely.
What are some ways that you can deal with this reduction of added sugars to the menu?
Right. So that I'm glad that you said that, because this really is just about the added sugars, and there are lots of things that we are currently having on the menu that are items with naturally occurring sugars, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is our fruit selection. And so I'm looking forward to the coming years of just opening that up to students more, and what we can offer them in terms of fresh fruit.
Amy, what are some potential sources for fresh fruit for the kids' menus?
Yeah, so something that we were so lucky to be a part of last year was the local Food for Schools grant.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you'll remember right, we got some beef from a local rancher here, and it was great quality. The students loved it. I felt like the community really was on board with that.
I agree.
The Oklahoma State Legislature has allocated $3.2 billion.
$3.2
That is
billion.
correct, yes, for the state-funded Oklahoma Local Food for Schools program. And as you're talking about what are some sources for that, comes to mind our even Live Say Orchard, being able to get some fresh peaches on our menus for students. Definitely will be looking into the beef situation again. I have been notified that they've changed some of the guidelines on my end and things I have to provide, but I will be more than happy to provide that so that we can get this on the trays for our students.
That is really exciting news and such wonderful support from the state of Oklahoma as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for visiting with us today,
Thank you
Amy.
for having me, Tina.
And we hope to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely.